Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
Are ghost hunters, quote-unquote, updating some of their theories? What do we think of some of the newest paranormal-themed movies and TV shows? Are, quote, demons more active in the world's current polarized atmosphere?
Hello and welcome aboard to the 814th broadcast of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I am Ben, and those motley questions came from my co-host, partner in the paranormal, and dad, Paul. And today we are back with our favorite guest co-host on this epic open line show, and we welcome your calls. The numbers are 800, it's actually 401-766-1240 from anywhere, or email Paul at behindtheparanormal.com, or contact us by Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. So welcome, Shave Sirois.
Yeah, so we get to spend the weekend together.
I know. That's right. Yeah, we were at the Western Connecticut UFO Conference in Danbury, Connecticut yesterday. I hung out there. I was really pleased with how that event was. Very exciting. A lot of people. It's growing. This is the fourth year. It takes place at the Danbury Library there with our good friend Aurelio Maraca and the staff. And it was really, really great talks and a lot of thoughtful approaches to things.
Yeah, all the talks were great. Specifically, I brought an old friend of mine along. We've been friends for years, but he'd never come to any of these things. And he was like, you know what? I want to go to this. And by the way, Shane, he loved your talk the most.
Oh, really?
Wow, yeah, he really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's a huge compliment.
And what was your subject, so the audience?
It was strange disappearances and abductions.
Yeah.
And it was a great event, and it was great to see Mark and Linda and everything. And
Mark D'Antonio was there, Linda Zimmerman.
And Aurelio did a great job, and full house. It was amazing.
Yeah, there were a lot of people there. It was really well-attended event.
It was, yeah. And I have to mention that Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who lately translated a few months ago, was a fixture at that conference. We always look forward to seeing Rosemary, who was an occasional guest co-host on this show and a legend in the paranormal community, author of 80 books, including encyclopedias, and it's just amazing. There was an empty chair left in her memory during the panel discussion right at the end, right next to you, I think. And it was really not next to Mark, and it was rather poignant. And we're going to do a tribute show, and we'll talk about this later. A tribute show to Rosemary Ellen Guiley next week on this show. Okay, so let's move on to our correspondence. One thing I wanted to mention, there's sort of a group, panic or whatever set in when people turned on the radio last week or however they listened to us and we weren't there. We did put out on social media that we were preempted last week by a local event. The news department here at WON 1240 AM and 99.5 FM was covering the annual Autumn Fest events here in Northern Rhode Island, which they always do.
Festival.
Yes. So we are always preempted that weekend, but so we're back. We're live. We're not going anywhere except to more conferences, and that's so no need to be concerned. That's the thing. So to build on our first question that we asked about ghost hunters, I happened to run across this from 2012. And we've been receiving questions for, since we've been on the air since 2008.
Did you have to dig through the archives to find it?
No, I didn't. It just kind of came up when I was looking for something else.
Oh.
And I just thought it was, I'm not going to do this for self-aggrandizement here, but just to maybe provide a little balance, because I think maybe we're still doing what she's kind of criticizing us for doing. And I think in some cases we're justified, in some cases we're not. But anyway, this was from Bonnie in Braintree, Massachusetts.
Okie dokie. So Bonnie writes to us, I really love your show and your books, despite the fact that I feel personally insulted every time you refer to the feral ghost hunters. I guess I fit that description. I assure you there are many intelligent, thoughtful, and sincere people who do ghost hunting as a hobby. I do it because I have many deep personal questions about death and the afterlife, and that I feel the need to answer for myself. Before I stumbled upon your show, I was, as you say, stuck with the 19th century theories about what ghosts are. When I heard your multiverse ideas, they made a lot of sense, and now I use that theory when I do my cases. The result is amazing, and I can see the explanation for phenomena much more clearly. I think you should give us ghost hunters a chance. Whether you know it or not, you two have been responsible for profound changes in paranormal research. It's some of us feral ghost hunters, quote unquote, who are putting your ideas into practice and benefiting from them.
So I was rather humbled by that, and I think I'll just speak for myself. I don't know about you fellows, but to apologize to anyone who has felt insulted by that, and who really is trying, anyone who really is trying to advance the field. But nevertheless, the criticisms do stand. There are people that I think don't talk to each other. A little bit of disciplined thinking would be good. And as I'm thinking of the academic realm, where you have peer review, people talk to each other. They exchange their papers and their ideas, things like this. I just say a little bit more of that would be good. And one of the main reasons for criticizing that I've always had in the past is because it's dangerous stuff. Very often, even if you're adopting theories that you think are better than what existed before, you don't really know if you're interpreting situations correctly and all this sort of thing. And again, of course, the same thing could apply to me. I started when I was 17 in this, and I was in the seminar. I had guidance. I had this, that, and the other thing, and did some academic work that I thought enhanced the understanding of it. But I mean, I was no more qualified really than anyone else. So I apply the criticisms to the earlier me too. So that being said, I think a balance might be required, but we certainly apologize to anyone who's felt insulted, but still issue the cautions that we have before. And there are feral ghost hunters. That there are people who really shouldn't be doing this. They're out there making a dog's lunch out of cases and this sort of thing. Shane, comments?
Yeah, so I agree with that. There's a lot of people that want to be paranormal researchers or investigators, and they want to learn, but then there's some that are just not capable of learning the right way because they have the wrong programming. You have to be of the right character type to really understand the mechanics and how to apply them in situations, and a lot of people don't have that because they've been pre-programmed by these television shows and what to think and what this stuff is, which is all inaccurate for the most part. But there are people that are able to pick up on this stuff and learn it the right way, but they need to seek it. And then I've also seen the investigators who's asked me to mentor them or teach them, and I start teaching them the mechanics, but it doesn't fit into their spooky Scooby-Doo atmosphere, and so that's what they're doing it for, because they like that spooky, goofy stuff. They make it a joke, and they make it just research for fun, or they go to the cemeteries or empty houses because they get a thrill out of it. Those are the wrong reasons to learn. So, but yeah, like I said, you have to be of the right character type. You have to be a sponge, and you have to be open-minded. But like I said, the right character type in order to apply the mechanics the proper way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Ben?
So, what's kind of interesting about that, I had her name.
Bonnie.
Bonnie, yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's super interesting stuff, and I like that she didn't start off with, well, I grew up in a haunted house.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of the thing I always kind of point to, and I'm like, okay, that's a little, you probably shouldn't be pursuing stuff, but I think we have been a little unfair. There are people who genuinely have questions and want to know and didn't receive the answers they wanted to receive from wherever. But one interesting thing that kind of popped up when we started talking about, feral ghost hunters, it's interesting. You can look at any other field of the paranormal, and you can kind of point to sort of a mass organization that exists in it, like MUFON or the BFRO or something like that, and they're kind of like a central hub of people's research. You can report cases, you can, provide photos, videos, whatever. And, there's a whole team of analysts that go through it, a whole team of investigators. But there's nothing like that for the ghost realm. And why is that? And I think
good question.
I think it's there's a couple of reasons. And I kind of started outlining this just so I could kind of get my thoughts in order. And I think the culture that kind of grew up around, the paranormal stuff was tainted from the start. And allow me to expand on that. So, what's everyone's sort of first encounter with the paranormal, right? Probably a scary movie, or if they grew up in a haunted house, right? So automatically, you're thrown into this world, and the first thing you experience, you're like, okay, well, how am I going to rationalize this? It's probably dead people, or it's reinforced by shows that kind of are like, yeah, this is what it is. It's reinforced by just general cultural beliefs that are still kind of like held deeply by people, and a science that only just started coming around to the idea of multiple worlds and the whole multiverse and things like that. And I think from the start the world of ghost hunting was kind of doomed to fail. And it's interesting because we look at some of the big names in the field, not to name names, and as much as we kind of harp on about stuff, there's a reason why we hang around Bigfoot people more and why we hang around ufologists more. Because they're more organized. They take a stance that just makes sense. They all think about things very deeply. Not to say that Bonnie here doesn't think very deeply about things, but there's no resource that you can point to that says, okay, well, we have this archive of cases. Here's all the video and analysis that's been done on it. We don't have that. And we haven't had it, and we're probably never going to have it because people can't get along.
Yeah, there's people that like we document all our stuff and we analyze all our stuff and we grow as as we're doing this. And so there's other researchers that do the same thing. But there has been attempts in the paranormal to bring everybody together and collaborate with information and stuff like that, and it's falling apart every single time.
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's too much ego. There's all kinds of
It's a toxic culture.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to have their own show. Everyone wants to be famous. Everyone wants to be taps. They all want to do this, and it's not all of them. I don't mean to make a blanket statement, but there are people out there who would take this stuff and they're like, oh, I just want to make money with it. That's it. And it kind of defeats the purpose, like Pinicello, right? He was the first
the head of Connecticut MUFON, or the Mutual UFO Network.
Yes. In Connecticut.
Yes.
He was. He works full-time job, does it part-time. He clearly doesn't do it for money. He's a great researcher. He's a great investigator. He did a presentation on how MUFON investigates their cases, and I learned so much about it, and it is amazing.
He's a great director too.
Oh yeah,
does a fine job.
He was sitting there and he was like, if you expect to be Fox, Mulder, and Scully, he's like, you're not. He was like, he was like 99% of cases are going to be boring. He's like, but that's okay, because it's not about excitement. It's about learning the truth. And I sat there and I was sitting there and I was like, wow, this guy gets it.
That's great. Yeah.
Whereas we have examples in mainstream media of just this incredibly toxic culture where it's like, oh, we're a team, but is it a team? Probably not. And there's something weird about people being drawn to this field where it's either incredibly altruistic or it's like, I want to feel powerful and I want to be special. And there's a lot of that just exists in this sort of field, and it's toxic. So we as gentlemen have just taken our sort of leave of it and have just pursued stuff on our own.
Yeah, and if you go by what's shown on TV and all these other TV shows, and people use that as a template as to how to be a paranormal investigator, anybody can do it. So that makes it easier for these people to jump in and say, "Oh, I'm a paranormal investigator," but it's all the wrong way. I mean, and that's my strong opinion, and I can prove it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to belabor this, but just maybe a final word on this point. Another thing that frustrates me is we have people who. I think we write our books, relatively decently. I think they're fun to read and easy to understand, so we've been told. But people will read our books, listen to our show for years, and listen to our lectures and still think it's all about dead people. They just think it's a different way to reinterpret their own ideas. But they're entirely new ideas. As we pointed out yesterday, we've had to come up with a whole new vocabulary just to talk about our ideas. You know, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but people don't see some people anyway don't seem to. Other people do. The light bulb goes on, or they recognize the ideas as their own experience. But again, hopefully, we have some validity to our ideas. But I just get frustrated when people still think it's about the old ideas cast in some new way, which it's not.
Right. After reading hearing Bonnie's letter, it sounds to me like she's got what it takes. I think she's going in the right direction. She's got the right character type. So
I'd like to hear from her again. It's 7 years ago she wrote that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
well, hopefully you're still listening.
Yeah.
we didn't insult you further.
That's it. All right. So here we have one. These are older ones we never got to. Meg from Ventura, California. The one at the bottom there, Ben.
So Meg writes to us, Paul, I read your new book, and I have to say I am blown away. I have never heard such concepts and such experiences. I have to say I put it down after the exorcism chapter because it was so scary, but I couldn't help myself and read the rest in 2 sittings. I was mad at myself that I had to keep a dinner engagement and had to stop reading. My question is, where does the influence of these, hold on while I flip the page, these parasites start, and where does it stop? How much danger are we in as a species, and how worried should we be?
Okay, well, I should have cut out the part that, praising the book. I mean, I appreciate that, but that's not the point. The reason that we have we put that first among our correspondence, except for Bonnie's, was that we have a number of people who wrote in about the notion of parasites and the current state of affairs in the world in general, and America in particular. The polarization, the division, this sort of thing, and not just political, but the terrible crimes that are being committed, the mass killings, things of this kind. I think that it's very tempting, it always has been, to say, "Oh, the devil made me do it," or the parasite, or whatever. And there are people who often will write in and say, "Well, I have this illness. How do I get rid of the parasite that's causing it?" Well, before you even look at parasites, we are not totally under their control. You have to look at our own personal responsibility. I think we live in a society where a number of problems take place. Ben, when you become a father, and if I ever hear you calling your son Buddy,
I only refer to my cat as Buddy.
You're going to answer to me, because these are basic problems in parenting and in growing up, and in upbringing that are just, I think, are responsible for a lot of problems people might blame on parasites. For example, everybody from the government on down seems to tell you that the world's all about you. Okay? Show your feelings, do this sort of thing. And parenting is not about your child being your buddy. They need a strong, guiding, loving hand. They don't need to be their buddy. They don't do things by mutual agreement. You are in charge in a loving way. That is so very, very crucial. And certainly I say that as a father. And I like to think that one of our examples is sitting right here, of whom I'm very proud.
It's me,
yes.
By the way, not Shane.
So, that's where it kind of begins. And again, children are not being taught self-control. You're in the market, say, or some store, and the kids, carrying on. It sounds like World War II going on. And the parents say, "Oh, listen, buddy," and some kid, be in control. That's what the child wants. That's what makes the child feel secure. In this world where people even ask the questions they've been asking about this, feel secure. It's not necessarily any kind of an illusion to feel secure. And this is our solution against parasites. You come together, yes. You strengthen each other, you love each other. That's what it's about. It's not rocket science, as the cliche goes. So that's just an answer to that. But as far as the influence of parasites, of course, they will use whatever the failings are in order to eat, And again, back in the day, we thought they were demons, and the priests would come in and all this business, but that wasn't good enough. It didn't seem to always work, and I think that what does seem to work, as far as we can see, is bringing in this positive energy to fight off the negative energy and cut off the food supply. Shane, you're an expert in this subject.
Yeah, and like you were saying too, is just like you were talking about the parenting and how to deal with children. It's the same thing that people do with these entities too. They give them the entities too much control.
Precisely.
Yeah, and they yield to these things. They say, "Well, this time of night I can't go in this room because it gets really active," and so they start disrupting their personal lives, and they yield to this thing, and they give into it and let it do what what it wants. Just like these parents you're talking about, you have to be in control of yourself, your environment, and therefore you'll be in control of these things. But they definitely need us in a lowered emotional state of being. That's usually what attracts them to us, and they'll maintain that, and they'll, by the things that they do, the disruption that they cause, and bring you to the point of fear, which is their ultimate goal in my belief. But they want us all to be in dysfunction, at odds, and at a lowered emotional state.
Yeah, and they'll have a feast.
Oh yeah,
that's how it works.
Yep.
So Ben, I don't know if you ever thought on that.
It's actually kind of interesting. Weirdly, I had a discussion a while ago with an Orthodox priest. Well, it was a while ago, and it was fascinating because I was talking to him about decision making, and I was like, oh well, do you think demons in sort of a broad sense, is it possible for people to blame them? And he was like, well, no. There's a theological principle, I suppose, and correct me if I'm wrong, Father, that really only when you're doing really well is when, parasites or whatever kind of bother you and try to get you into habits that are like, that are just negative. Just negative habits, and then really it's you that perpetuates the habits. Mm-hmm. That really it's the prompting of the decision, and when you make that decision, that's when things go bad. And I tend to agree with you, Dad, that it's all about responsibility, and I think it's our culture in America, at least, has sort of, and I hate to say it, but probably my generation is not super, is probably pretty guilty of this, where we like to feel like we're victims, and that's just, for whatever reason, maybe it's receiving pity, maybe it's like, you get a little fuzzy feeling when you're like, oh, someone does care about me, kind of thing. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, but we have this sort of culture where, you sort of, because it's okay to be a victim, that's fine. If something like legitimately terrible happens to you, that's great. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is someone who's fine, but they find something to be a victim about, and they take it and then they make whatever they're being quote unquote victimized for and just make it their personality, and that's it. And I think that's I think it's unfair to blame parasites for everything.
Well, they use what we do.
Right, but it's the decision making that's made by the individual. Mm. The decisions you make directly affect everything around you. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest things in Western culture is thinking that what we do doesn't affect anybody else, but it does.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it's one of the worst things, at least I've noticed very recently, is we all do it unconsciously. It's not like we mean to. We all just sort of wander around and make decisions, and it doesn't matter who we impact or not. We just make them, whether it's based on impulse or instant gratification, whatever. Every decision we make, we don't really think through, and I'm very guilty of this. Where we just do stuff, and we're like, oh well, I didn't really think it through, and I think that plays a lot into it. The paranormal is not something that's set apart from daily life, and everything that's sort of going on goes hand in hand. And one of the things that I've tried very hard to train myself out of, and I don't think I've ever fully done it, is not compartmentalizing, everything. You have to be the same thing through every situation. And trying to do that with the paranormal and realizing that, this stuff is not paranormal, it's just normal. And incorporating that into daily life and realizing that your decisions not only make waves in your life. It's when I leave here and I go home, whatever I do at my house will still make waves in the multiverse. Whatever I say right now is making waves somewhere with someone, maybe. But, those waves are still continuing. Whatever we do whenever we leave this room right now will affect everything outside of ourselves. And that's truly a concept that is hard to grasp.
Yeah. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour, and I'll take our break. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, with our special guest co-host today, Shave Sirois, our open line show on WOON 1240 AM and 99.5 FM in New England's beautiful Blackstone River Valley. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Joe Callahan, host of Coffee In, the longest-running panel discussion show in American radio. You never know what topic will pop up on Coffee In. So join us weekday mornings 8 to 9 on ON 1240 WOON Woonsocket Radio.
ON Radio, ON Worldwide.
And welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno and Shave Sirois today, our famous guest co-host. We're having an open line show today, and we were answering a question with some seriousness regarding the problems of the human race, how much is our fault, how much is parasites' fault, so to speak. And Ben had some profound comments, and Shane wishes to extrapolate.
Yeah, definitely. The part Ben was talking about, people with that victim-like mentality. I've run into that so much with some of the worst parasite cases. These people, they definitely do have like a victim-like mentality. So he's absolutely correct. I've seen it, thousands of times and hundreds anyways. And it's to the point where it's almost like they're welcoming they'll say that they want the entity attacking them, but in a way you can tell they actually kind of need it in a way.
Oh yeah,
and because codependency, and
yeah.
they can blame the entity for everything. Mm-hmm. It's the entity's fault that I'm a bad parent. It's the entity's fault that I drink too much. They will use that for blame, so they can veer away from responsibility for their own actions. Everything that Ben was saying was spot on.
Well, that's the thing. And then this gets into having had the same experience over many years, as you fellows had mentioned. When I wrote in Turning Home, God, Ghosts, and Human Destiny, which came out in 2002, or 2004, that we got into some of the spiritual implications of all this. And I said, the whole approach, whether it be New Age or whatever, I concentrate on me to become a better person. That's a mistake. That's exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. People, they fuss over themselves and their own spiritual development and everything else. And there's plenty of guilt in Christianity over this, too, and a lot of other religions, too. Yeah. What you do, if you take the totality of the human experience as expressed in many of the mystical fathers of all ages, you accept it's full of paradox. The multiverse is full of paradoxes. There is, and we've talked about this, came up yesterday in some of the discussions at the conference, the unity, or the African notion of Ubuntu, which is everything I do isn't about me, it's about everybody. It affects everybody, it affects the worlds, and in Swahili even it's plural, as it is in Greek and Hebrew in various scriptural references, worlds, that you end up with, it's the lesson being, as I say, the paradox, you accept yourself and then you forget yourself. You look outward, not inward, because that's where you are. You are out there. You're not in here. You're out there in the poor neighbor who needs help cleaning up his lawn if he's too old. That's a rather simplistic example, but it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about us. That's the key to spirituality, in my opinion. That's the lesson. And that's maybe the takeaway from that question and from everything we've mentioned in the past, few minutes here.
Yeah, exactly. So drop the ego and be humble.
Yeah. And then you find yourself.
Yes.
You lose yourself, that's how you find yourself.
That's exactly how you start.
Yeah. I think even Jesus said that. And certainly Gautama the Buddha said that.
Yeah,
so everybody said it who knew what they were talking about.
It kind of comes down to the same simple statements. Be nice to people.
Yeah, yeah.
Love thy neighbor.
Love your neighbor as yourself. In the Greek, it says what? Love your neighbor because he is yourself. That says it right there. Okay, I have a question from Mike. in New York City, but Mike asked the same question now that Bonnie asked 7 years ago, which we kind of answered.
Hopefully we answered your question, Mike.
Yeah. Oh, no, I beg your pardon. That's not, I'm looking at the wrong one. Diane from Charlotte, North Carolina asked that question. This is Mike in New York City who asked something entirely different, so
okay.
we'll be
now
nice
for something
to Mike.
completely different.
Yes.
Mike writes to us, looking back through some of your old shows, you used to talk about paranormal movies and TV. What do you think of Stranger Things? It seems like it matches up with your multiverse ideas. Oh, I mean, we brought this up before, I think.
Yeah, a little.
I vaguely
well,
remember
you liked it.
talking
I didn't
about
like it.
Well,
what do you think, Shane? Did you see it?
Yeah.
I saw 5 minutes of one episode and I got caught up doing something else. But I haven't. I heard it was great. I mean, I'm interested in watching it, but
I heard it was great too. But I didn't.
It didn't catch my.
It didn't. Yeah, it does tie into the multiverse idea. I don't know if it's enough. There was that movie with Nicole Kidman with the others.
Oh yeah,
that came out quite a few years ago. But people said, "Aha!" The people were actually thought they were ghosts, and they were actually, or they thought they were alive, and they're actually. I mean, yeah, I get that. I run into that kind of thing, but in the end, they really blew it. I just don't think people get this. And Stranger Things, I just found it very boring after a while. Even though they were talking about the Eno River.
Well, actually, apparently the Eno River is a river in North Carolina.
It is North Carolina, named after
the Durham brothers who created it.
Right.
From.
Well, the fact that Sam Gamgee was talking about the Eno was interesting.
That is true. Well, I'll explain.
Sean Astin, who played.
I know why you don't like it, Dad. I understand it because you have a very specific taste in movies and shows.
Yes.
And I was like, maybe Dad will like it, but it's the way that it's built. The way the show is structured like an old school horror flick, where you have a ton of build up, and once you finally get to the reveal, it takes a while. It moves slowly, but the whole point is to develop the characters so that you care about them, and that's kind of where that comes in. I don't know. The show is interesting. The basic structure of it is cool. I like the concept of it.
I like the acting. I think it's very
the acting's great. It's well written. The casting very good. Excuse me. I think it could have gone farther, and I'll explain why. So, for anyone who hasn't seen it, and I'll give you guys a brief sort of synopsis of it. So the whole point of the show itself is the government basically finds that there's this sort of hole between worlds in this tiny town in middle crap, I forget what state it's in. I want to say it's in Illinois. Hawkins, Illinois. So just tiny
Indiana,
small,
isn't it?
Hawkins, Indiana.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
right. Sorry. In Indiana. And they find this hole into another world, and it gets opened sort of inconspicuously by this sort of Project Stargate like thing, where this girl named 11 or L is basically trained from birth to be a military psychic, and she inadvertently sort of opens the link between worlds by running into an interdimensional creature, and boom, open. And it just creates all sorts of havoc, and then they have to close this gate, but it doesn't really close because you can't really close doors that are already opened, that kind of thing. So that's sort of a very brief synopsis of the show itself. The problem I have is, I am using this pun intentionally, is it's two-dimensional.
Yes, well said.
And it's supposed to, it's entertainment, and I think one thing I really had to train out of myself from going to film school and taking a ton of media criticism courses was it's entertainment, and that's what it is. It's not meant to have some great lesson. It's like when Scorsese said Marvel movies aren't cinema, which is well, duh. They're entertainment. That's what it is. It's not the 60s and 70s anymore where people just had tons of money to burn on art house films. So that being said, the basic ideas of it, they kind of drew from string theory. And, they don't really explain why things happen. They just the government did an experiment and boom, it just went wrong, which is structured like a traditional 80s horror flick. The Russians are doing something wrong, this. Whereas, and I'm opposing this to like Japanese monster movies where they have some sort of scientific explanation for why Godzilla is mutated, which is basically just an allegory for the Hiroshima bombings. Anyway, so that being said, they only kind of focus on one specific dimension that these creatures are coming from that we know of, and they just refer to it as the Upside Down, which is basically like a parallel universe in which, this sort of being that they never really extrapolate on, they just refer to it as him or it, and it just kind of does stuff, but it doesn't really explain it. It's just kind of like some malevolent force, for whatever reason, is just kind of destroying stuff and making it dark, quote unquote. And I think they could. It basically just focuses on that, a parallel universe, and just one. It's not exactly multiversal. It just kind of it's closer to string theory than the multiple worlds interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think it was two-dimensional also. However, again, that's me. I mean, thousands and millions liked it.
It's entertainment.
And right, and there was I believe a fourth season now that just came out. I haven't seen that yet.
Third season.
A third season? Okay.
And it was really
it's on
good.
Netflix.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
I'm a huge fan of Red Dawn. It's like my guilty pleasure movie is the original Red Dawn.
The original
Red Dawn.
Yes.
And they do like some like little references to it in there, and I was like, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, we have our very faithful listener Peter from Bogota, Colombia, has written one of his usual astute questions.
Okie dokie. So, Peter writes to us, the mysterious tone you recorded before, or recorded during your recent Pennsylvania explanation, did you play it backwards, different speeds, to see if there were any messages in it?
Yeah, just before anybody answers, Shane can answer that, but we had these experiences in Pennsylvania in May on our sixth expedition to the Pennsylvania Triangle, as we call it, which included a very dramatic UFO sighting, which we got on video. That's available if you want to see it. You can go to the station website here, onworldwide.com. Go to ON TV on demand, and you have to do some scrolling. But if you look back to the May 26th special of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, you will be able to see that video. But also, after the video, we played The Tone, a recording we were able to get of it. And do you happen to have that? You're always very handy with this thing, if you want to play it.
I mean, it won't translate super well, but go nuts.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if I have it on this phone. This is a backup phone, and keep talking. I'll look.
Okay. So the next night after that, actually the wee hours of the morning of the 25th of May, our group was saying goodnight to each other in the garage of the home where our very, very warm welcome.
I like to picture like the Von Trapp family.
Yeah, right. The lovely people who host us there and allow us to use their home as a base camp for 3 and 4 days in a row, let us use an apartment off this garage. So Chuck Credo, a friend of the show, familiar to many of our listeners, had gone to bed already, but he had only just gotten into bed, and the door was slightly ajar between the basement and the apartment, and he didn't hear any of this. All of a sudden, one of our producers from New York had joined us, and the tone appeared over her head in the garage, and it was a perfect C. Ben can explain from the point of view of a sound person.
A sound boy.
Sound expert. And we all looked at each other. The phones, was it an alarm? A very pleasant sound, perfect C. And then it moved out through the closed door. This is about 1:15 in the morning. Led us outside, went up into the air, faded out, came back, moved to the left, and then went up into the air. I mean, and again, we have 7 witnesses to this. And the people in the people who owned the house in the bedroom above with the windows open did not hear this at all. It was just us. So there you have it. So that's what that's about.
Can't find it.
Okay. So can you answer Peter's question here? As far as what have we done to analyze this?
So I have a friend who does this for a living. He's a brilliant person when it comes to frequencies and generating frequencies for all kinds of different things, healing and all sorts of things, meditations and everything. And he's just phenomenal. And so I sent it to him, and what he was going to do was he put it through all kinds of different spectrums, and what he was looking for was to see if there was any embedded data, which he couldn't make out because he said the quality of the audio recording, because it was recorded on my phone.
Yeah, mine too, yeah.
And Paul's phone, through a video. I opened up my video player and just hit record, because it was the quickest thing I could do. And he said he likened the audio recording to a blurry, pixely photograph. So it was impossible for him to determine if there was any data in there because it was all blurry, if you will.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure he played it in reverse. I know he played with it for a couple of days, and this guy is really good at what he does. I don't recall if he slowed it down. I think if we're going to find anything with it, and we're talking about this with Mark D'Antonio yesterday too, it would be to slow it down and see if there's maybe some kind of Morse code or something, But if it's played at a higher speed, it just sounds like one steady beat, just like Mark was suggesting. I'll try slowing it down myself and see if there's anything like that.
Well, the funny thing was that we weren't prepared for this.
Right.
We would have had equipment, because that's the problem with this field. You never know what's going to happen, and half the time you're not prepared.
We were putting our equipment away for the night to go to bed, so we
were. Yeah,
that's what we
luckily, as luck, if there is such a thing, would have it, we were prepared for the UFO sighting. With that, so that was
well, you
really,
were
really lucky. Well, so but with the tone, it was, and in 50 years of work in the paranormal trends, I've never experienced anything like that before.
That was really odd.
And Ben points out, he's doing the producer thing right now, but points out that it was a pure sine wave. In other words, which I believe is spelled S-I-N-E, and perfect C, did not decay, with no discernible source.
Mm.
So very, very strange. But I continue to be, well, I want to say haunted by the fact that you have been playing tones over 2 nights that you had gotten from Mount Shasta, and I had been playing some very haunting music that I happen to like very much from a very unusual composer.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether any of that audio stimulants had anything to do with these experiences, I don't know.
I honestly felt like the UFO was separate. That experience that we all had was separate to the tone. I mean,
yeah.
At least I should say, that UFO event that we saw wasn't there for us. That tone, I 100% believe in my heart that it was meant for us.
Yeah, and I get the same impression. Yeah,
and it had quite an effect on me. I've heard plenty of crazy things, and you have too.
Yeah.
I've heard screaming in the middle of a house. You can't tell where it's coming from, but you have to plug your ears. It's so loud. I've seen and heard crazy things. This was just a calm, soothing tone, but it had such an emotional effect on me. I can't explain it, and it changed me for a while. Like it just, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah,
and then I know you had talked about something similar too, and then you and I both had missing time within a week of being back.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yesterday, I really thought a lot about when we were talking about. Well, I think it was actually in both of our presentations we mentioned the Pennsylvania case, and I don't remember if you brought it up, Shane, or if it was you, Dad. That was like it was about. Basically, how the site kind of responded to us, sort of acting intelligently, and I really thought about that, and I was like, that's a really interesting sort of thing to kind of take away. That we go to the site, we do stuff to try and kind of communicate with the environment, and it responds back.
Yeah, I think that's very important. That's a very, very kind of First Nations approach. They would always believe that you interact, and I have always had that experience of becoming part of the land I live on. I don't know if you were 4 years old when we left our old place in Cumberland, Rhode Island, but I had a very difficult time doing that.
I remember when we moved in.
Yeah. But I had a lot of spiritual problems separating from that land. Mm. And there was a group based in Attleboro, Mass, who kind of did a circle and helped, and they came to our old place, and we had a circle there. So, but eventually, and because you bond with the new place sooner or later. But that's me. I don't know. I'm always feeling close to the land, and I feel a real bond, as do all of us, with this beautiful land in Pennsylvania. And I'm not afraid of anything that happens there. I don't feel threatened by it. In Rendlesham Forest. All that weird stuff going on that night, including your experiences, Ben, in 2012, I felt as though I belonged there. I don't know why, but with all the scary stuff that's supposedly going on, I did not feel threatened at all.
Well, I was talking to my buddy last night when we were coming back to Massachusetts, and I was really kind of reflecting on that whole thought of like the site sort of interacting with us like intelligently, and I was like, like there's all sorts of other places out there that don't have the same sort of response to people, and my first thought was like the Bridgewater Triangle. And that was like my first thought was like Freetown State Forest, because I felt so unwelcome there. Like instantly, like walking in.
There was hostility there.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I was like, huh. And I always sort of accepted it and kind of was like, yeah, it's a thing, but I never really thought about it until this whole past trip to Pennsylvania, which I really wish I was a part of, but. There's more trips in the future.
Yeah, there'll be many more.
That's what I was going to say on this, and it's important to bring up too. So communication with a phenomena, we would never try to communicate or interact with a parasite, in a parasitic environment. Yeah. This is not a parasitic environment, so that's what I want the listeners to be clear of, because I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, you guys say not to talk to these things, and we don't, and you never do. What's different about this land where we're at is it just got a very positive vibe. The family members that live on this property are all positive.
People are wonderful.
Yeah, there's no parasite activity other than the shadow people, but we got rid of that.
Yeah,
and we educated them, and all that and stuff. But the activity is much different than that of a parasite situation. Although where you do have areas that are conducive and you can have anything coming through, so you potentially could have a parasite that could come through utilizing the same processes that these other things are utilizing to come through and interact. We're a very positive group. We were all in a good, loving, positive state of mind and state of being. So that's what you have to have if you're going to try any kind of like interaction like that. And but we were interacting with the environment and not trying to call it a parasite. So I just wanted to make sure.
No, that's very important to realize. Yeah. Well, I mean, in our point of view, it's a flap area, a point, multiple intersect points between multiple parallel worlds, some of which have different laws of physics, and some of which have different inhabitants. Some of which apparently know how to come and go as part of their lifestyle. All right. And our group is not, we don't have a lead investigator or a third deputy assistant honcho. We're just a bunch of close friends who work well. We enjoy each other's company. We have similar points. Not always agree on everything, but we have the thing that we share is a respect and a love, not just for each other, but for the sites we investigate and for the people we work with. And to me, that's everything. So we'll continue to keep everybody informed on this case, and we'll be moving on with it as well. So, okay, here's one from. There's one on climate engineering, but I don't know. I want to do some research on that first. Ray in Massachusetts.
So Ray writes to us, what are your thoughts on spirituality and churches? I went to a mass 2 weeks ago, and I felt great, like a massage for my soul, or a massage for the soul, specifically.
Okay. Well, not exactly a paranormal question on the face of it, but I mean, spirituality it's all part of this sort of thing. And people hear about my seminary background. I get a lot of questions like this. Spirituality is we are. I don't think we're Homo sapiens because we don't know a heck of a lot, but we are Homo odorans. We're kind of constructed to worship God, whatever he, she, it, or them may be. Okay, and we gather in communities to respond to that need, and that's where churches and synagogues, other religious organizations come from. Unfortunately, I think they often descend into the institutionalized state and end up becoming an end in themselves, and their leaders become too controlling, or whatever it happens. They're subject to the same faults as any other human organization. But down deep, it works for many people. All right, there is some feeling today that certain religious groups aren't fitting in with the modern way, but the modern way is always changing. Modern mores and points of view on morality and things. That's always changing. It'll change back. The pendulum always swings. And but there's a religious group for every temperament. I personally would beware of the sort of potpourri, buffet-style spirituality. A lot of people like the Star Wars films, including me. But you have the Force, which is very much the kind of God, if you will, that modern Western humanity would like. You control it. It does things for you. That kind of thing. So I think that, you go to a mass or to the synagogue or to the mosque or to the Wiccan circle, maybe, and you can feel very much massaged in your soul. I can't answer that. Yeah, I think it's certainly legitimate. It's been legitimate for the whole history of the human race. But today you have there's much is made of the statistics of people who are spiritual but not religious. I believe that's the term. Okay, and I get that. The religion often, and I don't think. I think you have to treat your point of view, whether it be Christianity or whatever, as a way of life, not as a religion. But that's. And to put it in a box, and only once a week and all this stuff is not really good. But the answer, yeah, Ray. I mean, sure. I mean, your spirituality may change. It may lead you elsewhere. But yeah, if you really feel that it's good, then use it for what is best about it.
Yeah, I think, and religion should do just that. Religion, or say a church, or anywhere that you practice spirituality, it should be an accepting environment. It should be a loving environment. It should be a positive environment. And so, for that reason, it should massage your soul. It should make you feel good, and that's the reason why you should, you go there, is to maintain that and to help others to maintain that as a group. The problem I have with a lot of these facilities, institutions or whatever, or churches or whatever you want to call them, is a lot of them are not that way. A lot of them are self-righteous. A lot of them are not accepting, and a lot of them use fear to teach. I mean, I went to Sunday school when I was 5 years old. I came home crying because I thought I was going to burn, because that's all. Everything.
Oh, I know. Right, the Sisters of Mercy in the 1960s.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the wrong. Fear shouldn't be used in a church environment. It should be positive, accepting, loving. Yeah. In my opinion. Ben?
I think the word, there's a funny sort of cliched term, which is, he's a God-fearing man. Which is like, I think it's really funny because the word fear was just mistranslated, because initially it was awe.
Yes.
And the word awe meant like just completely perplexed, right? You're supposed to be awed by the existence of God, which is like, you're perplexed. Not, I think fear is just it got taken too literally. Now it's like, you gotta watch out. You eat a hot dog on Friday, going like. Well. But I think it's evolved, kind of ish. But I mean, I don't know. I know plenty of people who I think it comes down to the person and how they view their own spirituality. And I think it's, you can take the rules and be super negative about it and be really judgy of other people, or you can be really joyful, which is you can be a joyous person and be nice.
There's nothing worse than joyless Christianity or joyless Judaism or joyless anything in that
realm.
It's
a major part. It's a part of the culture, is just being joyful.
And we're just about out of time, but just one comment. The positive nature is really important, because, and especially in the old days, the worst cases I ever saw, including that Bridgeport poltergeist in 1974 parasite attack, was in homes where there were religious pictures all over the place. A very devout old Roman Catholic spirituality, which very often was very, very negative. Fear, based on fear rather than love. I took a lesson from that. So anyway, okay, so let's move on to the announcements then. As we've said, Ben, Shane, and I had a great time at the Western Connecticut UFO Conference yesterday, Danbury Public Library in Connecticut. Many thanks to Reeler, the whole staff, and many who attended. We've received a number of messages even during the show saying how much people enjoyed it, so it was really, really great. And
That's lovely. Yes, I mean, we try our best. This Wednesday, October 23rd, we'll present on a program at the Mount Hope Farm. That's 225 250 Metacom Ave, that's Route 138 in Bristol, Rhode Island, at 7 p.m. It's open to the public, but there's a $5 charge for non-members. See the events calendar at MountHopeFarm.com for information.
A day later, on Thursday, October 24th, comes our final event of a very busy 2019 lecture season. We'll be at the Tewksbury Mass Public Library at 7 p.m. to present a Fright Night program based on several of our books. Check the events calendar at tewksburypl.org for information. We'll see you at the New England Parafest in Kittery, Maine in April. Now, Shane, you have a special presentation October 29th. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so it's in New Ipswich, New Hampshire, which is my hometown. It's not far over the Mass line, just over, I border Ashby, right past Fitchburg area in Massachusetts. It's at the Sauhegan Country Club, October 29th. So you can go to sauhegancountryclub.com for tickets and more details.
And we're just about out of time, so Thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you behind the paranormal.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now.